Hello, how is it going? Gennaro here, CEO of Core Tech Solutions, your lead instructor, and today we're going to be talking about web security, and we're just kind of build upon application security as well too. But let's go ahead and get started. And you'll see some of the same type of verbiage and lingo, but we'll just kind of go a little bit more in depth and just kind of solely focus on web security. So web security, think about protecting a web application, like we talked about, right? These are services, okay, that are being utilized, and all about the sensitive data that's going back and forth. Because those threats like SQL injections and cross-site scripting, DDoS attacks, these are very much increasing as more and more businesses open up. They have online platforms. It's a critical aspect that we need to always address. So we'll kind of go quickly through this, right? So let's talk about SQL injection. We mentioned last time that, well, if it's a SQL statement that's being put inside of a form, we can talk about a login form, for instance, right? That's going to give you back information. Well, you can use queries and stored procedures, as they call it, to call back some information, right? You can use this to give back information. If you want to know what admin, if it's available, if you want to know another username is available, you can use SQL injections to do so. Cross-site scripting is a little bit different. This is where an attacker is going to inject a malicious script into the web page itself. Okay? It's going to be viewed by a user, so you're going to use JavaScript, right, to do so. So in order to mitigate this, though, you want to use input validation, same with your SQL injection as well, too. And that content security policy like we talked about as well to prevent these cross-site scripting attacks. And then there's session hijacking. Now think about session. We all have like our cookies, right? So you get a session ID. Now this is where an attacker is going to steal that user session, that authenticated user session, and use that as in like a replay attack in a sense. Now, in order to mitigate this, you can use HTTPS, secure cookie flags. I talked about the cookies, right? And timeout mechanism so that account is not open and on all day long. And then you have cross-site request forgery. Now, this is where a user, or not really a user, but a exploit is being done, right? It's going to exploit that user. It's going to make them perform unintended actions, as in, a malicious link that triggers someone to send some money when they really wasn't trying to. So in order to mitigate this, you have your CSRF tokens and then reauthentication prompts to reauthenticate that person to make sure that, hey, are they still here? Are they who they say they are? Now, these are methods that have been going and steadily rising. So we have to be on the other side of the thing and making sure that, okay, we are putting into place all our core principles and securing our web applications as we see fit. Authentication and authorization. Like we talked about before, authentication is verifying the user, right, via some form of password or some form of something, all right? Whether that be biometrics, multi-factor authentication, right, because we're trying to log in. Authorization happens after the fact because we're saying, okay, they logged in, great, but what type of access control are we going to give this user? Are they admin? Are they standard? Right? So we want to restrict admin level permissions on a account that's not necessarily admin. Then you have your encryption, data at transit, data at rest. Now, in order to do so, when you're putting into place encryption while data is transmitting on a network, you want to make sure that you're using HTTPS or TLS. This is going to encrypt that traffic, make it to where you can't see what's going on inside, like a man in the middle. And then data at rest, when you're putting encryption, think about your algorithms. We talked about basic and advanced cryptography. So a technique that you can use is implementing AES 256. You really want to secure that information, right, that's based on that system. Because again, think about it. A lot of the times, like the target breach, what did the attackers go for? They went for the POS systems because they knew that they're going to be storing credit card information. If they had database encryption enabled, well, they wouldn't have really got away with anything. They would have to find the actual decryption key for that. Okay. Now, vulnerability scanning. This is another way. We talked about SAST and DAST, and that's all we're really trying to do. Either find the flaws in the code pre-deployment with SAST or live with DAST. Advanced techniques for web security, we talked about these before, right? Your web application firewalls. This is a way that you can prevent injection attacks. You can base whatever that rule is off of something, off of content, if you will. Penetration testing, we know that that's all about pen testing a system, making sure that, hey, well, there's an actual exploit. I should be able to see that. I should be able to actually try to exploit that too. That's something we also want to look into as well. You have your CSP, content security policy. This restricts what a browser, in a sense, can execute. Think of like JavaScript, right? Or if they only want to load JavaScript and nothing else. All right. You have threat intelligence too. This is a way that you continually monitor based only on the analysis of new information, right? New emerging threats. You also have your container security, like Dockers and Kubernetes. This is like a whole environment where you're able to monitor any configuration issues. Think of like a honeypot too, but you're able to monitor what's going on there. And then you have your DevSecOps, like we talked about as well, automating that process when it comes to checking for continuous integration, continuous deployment. And let's kind of go back into the e-commerce website here. We're all about securing the information. So we want to secure our checkout pages with, HTTPS, TLS. And then you want to use tools such as Cloudflare, like their own web application firewall. You have Avast. These are all different types of commercial entities that you can utilize. And the result is going to be the same. You're going to prevent financial data from being turned into the wrong hands. We want to be able to prevent the breach from an ejection attack, from a phishing attack. The only way we could do that is if we apply real world time these practices. It's been great. Gennaro here, CEO of Tech Solutions, your lead instructor, and today we talked about web security. Brought to you by ACSMI. Have a great one. Take care.